Brothers here at rainbrothers.com. Today I wanted to go over the installation of a float switch on a pump. Now in this particular case we're putting in what's called a normally open float switch into the system. This normally open switch will shut the pump off when the water level gets low in your water tank. So the way a float switch works is in the upward position. You can hear there's a ball in there that rattles to make contact. In the upward position, that ball is making contact and allowing the wire, the circuit to pass through the switch. In the downward position, once it starts to fall, there's a click down. That will disconnect that circuit and turn the pump motor off, turn the electric to the pump motor off. So that's what we want to accomplish today. With the normally open float switch, if you order a pump from us with a normally open float switch, we will pre-assemble the switch to the pump at no additional charge. But if you wanted to assemble it yourself, the way to do it is you'll notice that there are two wires coming out of the float switch. There's a white wire and a black wire. Ordinarily, white and black mean different things in electrical circuitry. In this case, the colors mean nothing. So pay no attention to the colors. All this switch is doing is continuing the circuit of one of the legs of the pump, continuing the circuit down through the switch and then back up. So what we want to do, if we're installing this normally open float switch to our Franklin C1 10 gallon per minute pump, all we're going to do is take, for simplicity's sake, we'll take the black wire from the pump. Again, the pump has 3 bare leads, green, white, black. We're going to take the black wire from the pump, we're going to splice it to the white wire of the switch, leaving a black wire exposed. So if this is a 115 volt circuit, the ground is going to be neutral, or 115 volt pump, the ground is going to be the ground, or the green is going to be the ground, the white is going to be our neutral, going to the pressure switch and then to the panel, and then our black is going to be hot. So all we're doing with this float switch is we're interrupting that black hot leg by splicing these two wires together, and we'll eventually leave a black bare lead that will tie to our hot leg from the pressure switch and from the panel. So here I have one that's already done, and all we did was we peeled back the insulation, or the sheathing on this wire. We peeled that back. We got our white and black leg exposed from the float switch, and we used one of our Submersible Splice Kits to splice the white wire from the float switch to the black wire on the pump. We heated it up with a torch, shrank that heat shrink sheathing to the splice. Now it's rated for submersion in water, and now we have 3 wires exposed, just like we did before we wired the pressure switch in, and these wires are going to be the same. So this is the ground, this is the neutral, this is the black, this is the hot. For a 230 volt motor, it's the same thing. Just as long as you splice the white wire from the float switch to the black wire on the pump, it just makes it easy. On a 230 volt motor, 230 volt pump, the white and the black will both be hot legs, but one of them will be interrupted by the float switch. So we have 3 bare leads. When you're installing our Submersible Splice Kit, it helps to have a pair of wire strippers and crimpers, and you're just going to strip the wire back, twist it a little bit, insert it into the splice. There's a halfway point there. You keep your crimper on this side of the halfway point, and then just squeeze, and it will tighten that. It will cavitate this crimper here against the wire, and then the same thing with the wire you're joining. Use a crimper to push down on it. You can use channel locks or vice grips, but it's a lot easier to use this wire, this electrical tool, the strippers with the crimper on the bottom side. And then you want to make sure that this heat shrink tube is on one of the sides before you splice the wires together. And with a propane torch, just heat up that shrink tubing. Keep the flame away from the shrink tubing. You don't want it directly on it. Just keep it back and just slowly move it around until it gets a good solid seal like that. When you're mounting the float switch to the pump, you want to make sure to get a good tether point against the pump. So on this pump, this screen right here is the intake. That's where water is getting drawn into the pump. So we want to make sure that this float switch cuts the pump off before the water drops below the level of this intake. So what we do is we get some electrical tape or some zip ties. We'll pick a tether point. You want about 5-6 inches between your tether point and the start of the float switch. And you just want to make sure that that ball drops before water gets below that intake screen. So you can hear the ball drop. That's the point of shutoff right there, and that's above that intake screen. So that's a great tether point, which is right at this label here on the pump. And again, just electrical tape or zip ties to secure that tether point. And then you can tape it again on your discharge pipe from the pump. Tape it again up here just to anchor it even more solidly. Again, this is the installation of a normally open float switch on one of our Franklin C1 10 gallon per minute cistern pumps. Now this Franklin has two models of C1 pumps. So there's a 20 gallon per minute and a 10 gallon per minute. Please be careful. Do not order a 20 gallon per minute cistern pump, because the 20 gallon per minute pump, the C1 20 gallon per minute, is for septic tanks. It's basically a sump pump. The 10 gallon per minute pump is the pump that's designed for cisterns, for pressurizing water to supply a house from a water tank. So the 10 gallon per minute is the model that you want. That's the model we sell on our website. We sell these float switches, and if you order both of them together, we will pre-splice the switch in with the pump before we send it out. Thank you so much for watching, and again, this is Jonathan from Rain Brothers, and we appreciate your support.